Well, greetings, friends and colleagues. It's old news that COVID-19 has triggered a massive new normal in just about all aspects of life, including higher education and its internationalization. Business as usual in internationalization is severely disrupted for the short and medium run, and very probably for the long run. We need to be equally disruptive and challenging ourselves to be creative in finding solutions to these new realities. Predictors of a new normal were easily detectable prior to COVID-19, but now magnified manyfold by it. For example, years of public disinvestment in higher education is exacerbated by COVID-19 economic fallout, and indeed threatening the existence of many of our institutions. Rapidly rising tuition costs for both domestic and international students limit access and build ill will. The global spread of quality education and research capacity on all continents is widening options for attracting the best students and scholars. North America, Europe, and the Antipodes have real competition. More cost-effective and flexible models of mobility, short, long internships, and not for credit for students as well as for faculty, have been on demand for many years. But existing mobility and partnership models are challenged by high-quality regional options found closer to home throughout the world now for many of our students and faculty. Pressures are increasing to find more eco-friendly and sustainable modes of international engagement. The collapsing airline industry, which will be leaner and likely more costly in the future, magnifies these problems. Now, I and others began writing about these and many other challenges a decade ago. But the warnings largely fell on deaf ears because preserving the status quo was easier. There's little choice now but for us to engage real change and innovation. One small example, internationalizing the curriculum at home will require new pedagogies and innovative use of technology. The spread of e-science collaborative options diversify modes by which international engagement can be undertaken by institutions. Or what if international education associations around the world focused their conferences on challenging outdated internationalization practices in favor of innovation in practice? Change will drive our futures, whether we choose to participate or not. We need to be proactive agents of change rather than waiting for change to run us over. We need to be genuinely open to new ideas and ways of engaging internationalization and its purposes rather than defending the old and the familiar. We need to involve our students and communities and institutional clientele in setting and implementing these priorities for change rather than merely telling them what we plan. We need to re-examine 20th century higher education internationalization paradigms, parts of which were merely shuffled forward into the present century. Globalization and internationalization are not dead. The virus actually proves the opposite as we struggle over its easy transmission across borders and as we search for solutions to problems that require international cooperation and collaboration. Change is already afoot. We are already moving toward more digital globalization and away from physical globalization. The challenges of resurgent right-wing nationalism have been underway for nearly a decade, and the virus makes national walls appear even more attractive, but at the same time, very ineffective. Even under nationalistic models, national success will depend on global collaboration for access to the best students, faculty, and scholars. It is global collaboration that will result in cutting-edge opportunity and results that benefit all, the big guys, the little guys, and the in-between guys. Our challenge is to institutionalize self-examination, innovation, and open-mindedness in our thinking. Okay, easily said and hard to do, but the challenge is there for us to take up. Thank you. I think the main thing is for me to reinforce that my observation about our association meetings and the educational programs, and I hope I'm not being unfair, but there is not much out of the box thinking. It's sort of like finding out how to fine tune what we've already been doing and to reinforce the things that we've always thought were important, which is okay. But now as we face a real change in the environment, if the change is not, I think, that people don't care about internationalization anymore, but they want an internationalization that is going to be relevant in this environment. And that's the thing that we need to really focus our attention on. The focus of the conferences, I wouldn't say in whole, but certainly is in part, to take a look at and really emphasize issues of innovation, thinking very differently about what our communities and our countries and the world need from us, rather than us saying what it is we'd like to provide them. What is it that they need? So I think that will take some real conference planning. It's just not, people need to be thinking about this and talking about it. And that in itself, to sort of emphasize change and meeting a wholly new environment, is itself a paradigm shift. I think the first thing is to continuously ask that question and to have conversations among people that focus on that. I mean, an exchange of ideas and information among conference participants focused on what would constitute innovation and change given new environment that we're in, given new constraints that we're under. So let's take an example. I think international travel is going to be much more difficult. It's going to be difficult because the airlines are probably not going to be providing the options that we got used to. It's probably going to become more costly. Our institutional budgets are not going to be as rich as they once were in supporting international travel. So the question is, how do we engage? What is the innovation required to engage across borders without having to travel back and forth on an airplane every other day? That's just another paradigm shift, is that in many places in the world, I will not say all, but in many places in the world, public disinvestment, that is shrinking public budgets for higher education, have been made up by increasing tuition. That's no longer possible. People have been complaining for a long time about the cost to the consumer, and there have not been many controls on how our higher education spends its money and what causes higher education to become more efficient. Part of the paradigm shift is for us to focus on how do we do the job in a more cost-effective way. Look, that's a very good question. Can we be optimistic? Well, let me start with an answer that says, what's the alternative? And the alternative is to be pessimistic. And that's a very bad way to go through life, okay? So if you have a choice, think about how to be optimistic. Now, I can give you a better answer than that. And it's embedded in what I said earlier. Globalization is not done. I have some colleague friends who want to say that, and they say it, but I don't agree with them. And the need for internationalization is not done. What we have hit is a kind of bump in the road, as opposed to a cliff that falls down 20 kilometers. It's not the end. Our job is to think about how to respond to this new environment. And if we do that, we can be optimistic and should be optimistic. I'm optimistic. You should be too.